A murder mystery in Gotham. Everyone loves a good whodunit story, especially when it comes to the Caped Crusader. And the second episode of Batman Caped Crusader gave us that perfect story. And when I say perfect story, I mean perfect mystery story. It literally starts out like an episode of Criminal Minds. And to me, that was a really, really cool aspect. So, with that being said, today we are talking Batman Caped Crusader, Season 1, Episode 2, breakdown and review. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, Batman Caped Crusader's second episode. Let's get right into it. As I said, the episode starts out similarly to how an episode of Criminal Minds were to start, if you've ever seen that show. It's pretty intense. So this one is giving us a look at this universe's version of Clayface. However, it's not the traditional Clayface, at least the one that we've been used to over the last several decades. It is the Golden Age Clayface, which means it is more of someone who can just change their outward appearance and more diving into the shapeshifter aspect of the character versus him being literally made of clay, someone who can actually make weapons out of his own body. In this universe, that is not the case. This version of Clayface is much more just a shapeshifter and someone who can't even take damage in the same manner that the other version of Clayface can. Because as we see towards the end of the episode, Batman is able to knock him out with, I believe it was only 3 punches, and he was down for the count. That being said, in this universe that they have set up, especially because it is taking place in the 30s and 40s, I think it really does fit a lot better. This version of Batman, to me, would not be able to combat with that version of Clayface. With a version of Clayface that could make weapons out of his body, and that realistically his only weakness is electricity or ice in a lot of iterations. So to me, them doing this, at least to start out, they may have him evolve down the line as Batman grows and evolves, and that could actually be really cool, him evolving more as a character and as a villain to combat Batman, and then Batman having to also evolve. Could be a really, really cool, interesting dynamic. But the way part of this episode sets up and proceeds is really strange to me, as it has us seeing a lot of the episode through the eyes of Renee Montoya. And if any of you may know, in a lot of iterations, Renee Montoya is someone who is either partnered with Commissioner Gordon or directly under Commissioner Gordon, partnered with Harvey Bullock. I'm often a fan of when she is partnered with Harvey Bullock, just because Bullock, in a lot of iterations, is a more goofy, silly detective. He cares more about sitting around eating his donuts, and then Renee is the more serious one. And I like that contrast between their relationship, whereas this one, she doesn't have a partner. She's just on her own. And that strikes me as a little weird because I'm pretty sure, at least back in this time, every single detective had a partner. So that was just very strange to me, kind of right off the bat. She was just off doing things on her own, and it felt like she was reporting directly to Commissioner Gordon, and she even had seniority over a lot of the other detectives. And we don't really explore how she got that, or when she got that, or anything like that, really. It was just, hey, this is how it is, and we're going to proceed from here. But that being said, we do progress through the episode. She does start to interview people, and interview Basil Carlo, a few other people that were associated with the person who was missing, and each and every step of the way we do get more and more hints. And this is the thing that I wanted to point out that I really enjoyed about the episode. I enjoyed the murder mystery aspect. I always think that's really cool. And another really cool thing is, as Renee Montoya is going through this process, Batman is also going through it as well. Batman is looking on from either the rooftops or balconies, and he does have a listening device that he has in Renee's jacket, which is really cool. Actually, one of the first people that was interviewed by Renee Montoya was Bruce Wayne. And I thought that interaction was really cool because on one hand, he is playing the billionaire playboy, the bachelor, and trying to offer her money, trying to bribe her, trying to say, I just really would rather my name not be brought up in this. And then we do get Lucius Fox coming in there. And in this universe, it's a little weird. He's actually Bruce's personal defense attorney. A lot of times he is associated with Wayne Industries. I think I much prefer that, and him being the person to help run Wayne Industries, a lot of times actually running Wayne Industries, especially a lot of the tech departments. I think that's a little bit more of a cool dynamic and it gives him more to do versus in this, he is just Bruce's defense attorney. But he puts an end to their interview, the interrogation. Even though Detective Renee Montoya does state that Bruce isn't even a suspect, Lucius Fox is not having that and says, yeah, still, doesn't matter. If you want to talk to him, you can come to his estate. And then you get an interesting conversation between Batman and Alfred, where Batman says he tried to bribe Renee Montoya and she wasn't having it. Not only was she not having it, but it pissed her off. So that let him know that this detective is someone who, one, can be trusted, and two, is not crooked in virtually any way. Because when you have Bruce Wayne there offering you a bribe, not giving any sort of dollar amount, that's basically a blank check. And especially in this time period, whatever money Bruce Wayne could have offered her would have literally set her up probably for life. So the fact that it not only wasn't something she considered, but it actually pissed her off, showed Bruce that, hey, this is someone that is very, very trustworthy. And to me, that's really cool because it shows us that not only was Bruce trying to protect his identity as Batman, as trying to show himself as this playboy bachelor, but he was also doing it for a secondary purpose. And that purpose was to test this detective. And I think that's really, really cool. And I think it just adds to the deeper lore of this Gotham universe that is being set up here before us. One that is very, very corrupt, with pretty much every aspect of law being corrupt in some way. And Batman has to try to navigate that and try to find out which people can be trusted and which can't be. And right now, it seems Renee Montoya, Barbara Gordon, and to me, Commissioner Gordon is also trustworthy. However, I don't know if Batman has that confirmed about Commissioner Gordon as of yet. But time will tell. That being said, we do progress through the episode, and as each person gets interviewed, new murders do happen, and we do get the reveal of Clayface, and we get the Golden Age Clayface officially confirmed. He does look really, really cool. I am a big fan of this design. And we get a little bit of combat between him and Batman before he is able to escape from Batman. And then as this is happening, actually Basil Karlo does get murdered, or so we believe he is murdered. It is later revealed in the episode that the person who did the experiments on Basil Karlo to make his face and his appearance look more satisfying for certain acting roles did do some experimental things to him that changed his cellular structure to the point where he could morph himself into essentially whoever he wants to be. And then we do find out that Basil Karlo, Clayface, did end up killing that guy, but also killed multiple people that Renee Montoya was interviewing throughout the episode, and the people she was interviewing were essentially just stand-ins. However, one issue I had with this episode, one of multiple, was that they never explain how he was able to control them. It didn't tell us whether they were extensions of him, similar to how the Clayface we're all used to of the past couple decades could split part of himself off, and then they could be autonomous. They could respond to either commands by him or act a certain way to how he wants them to. None of that is ever explained. And for part of it, it's okay. It doesn't need to be, like when Basil Karlo is found murdered. That's totally okay because he doesn't need to act. He doesn't need to talk. He doesn't need to move. He merely needs to appear as a dead body. So that being just a part of him lying there with no consciousness does make sense. And I have no issues with that. What I have issues with is Renee Montoya interviewing multiple people. And those multiple people having conscious reactions, conscious interactions, and answering questions. However, it's never explained to us if that is indeed either Clayface or if it is just a part of Clayface. To me, the only explanation that does make sense in that instance or those instances is that it wasn't like the Basil Karlo that he had there dead. It was actually our Basil Karlo changing his appearance to look like each and every one of these characters. However, the only issue with that and that explanation is in a couple of those instances, we do see Golden Age Clayface essentially right after, or very, very soon after. So unless we're supposed to believe that he's able to change his appearance that quickly, it just feels like a really big plot hole, especially when the entire focus of the episode is around his shape-changing ability and his ability to leave behind these clone-like looking things. That again, we never do get explained whether they are autonomous and they can be controlled remotely. I feel like that's probably my biggest issue with this episode. The other issue I do have is the combat in it wasn't great. It felt a little boring at times. Don't get me wrong, the mystery element and the whodunit was really, really cool to see, and it was awesome to see Detective Montoya and Batman follow along this story in a very linear fashion as to all these people continue to get murdered, and then Batman finding those two people that were murdered days ago but yet were interviewed only a few hours ago. And Batman making that connection was really, really cool and interesting to see. But then when it comes to the actual combat between Batman and Clayface, it felt really lackluster. The best action between them was that little fencing duel, which to me felt a little silly. Again, I know Batman the Animated Series did things like this a few times. However, to defend that, they were also made in the 90s, so animation was a lot more limited back then. And to my knowledge, they rarely did anything like this where it was Batman fencing, aside from when it was against Ra's al Ghul or the one ninja that he does fight 2 times in the series. And again, in both those instances, it does make sense. However, in this, Basil Karlo just picks up a fencing sword and starts to duel Batman, and Batman just duels along with him, even putting his one arm out like they're fencing. It just felt a little silly to me and was kind of disappointing, especially because to me, in the first episode, the action and the animation was pretty good, whereas in this one, it did feel like it was lacking at least a little bit. However, it could have been because they were just trying to dive into the murder mystery aspect a little bit more. And I think that goes into my other issue, and that's Renee Montoya being such a focal point in this episode in particular. Again, I feel like with the characters that we have in this universe, having her play such a major role so early on felt a little bit out of place, at least to me. I would have preferred it be either Commissioner Gordon or Barbara Gordon, because at least Barbara Gordon had the interaction with Batman already in episode 1, so she does have some sort of connection with him right off the bat. Whereas this one, by the ending, Renee Montoya is holding up a gun to Batman and tells him to stay there, after he literally just saved the lives of her and the person who had been kidnapped and missing the entire episode. That felt really out of place. It felt silly to me. And then you do get the interaction when she finds the speaker in her jacket and she says, "Hey, Batman, we're not done. This isn't over." And you get the sense that we're now going to have a storyline in which Renee Montoya is trying to capture Batman or trying to bring him in for something. I'm praying that they do not do anything like that and it ends up amounting to almost nothing, and she very quickly realizes Batman is on the side for good because he literally just saved you, stopped the bad guy, and saved the person who was kidnapped. So it would feel silly to me if this was an ongoing thing, Renee Montoya going after Batman, especially because to me, she's supposed to be one of the few police officers in this universe that we are supposed to like and that we are supposed to know are good. To me, going after the one person who we do all know is 100% good, I mean, he's literally Batman, come on, would feel really out of place and would disconnect people from her character. But other than that, I feel like it was a pretty decent episode. In my opinion, it wasn't as strong as the first one. However, I did see some previews for the third episode and they do look pretty cool. So I'm hoping that the quality, at least from the fights, are better in the third episode versus what we had in the second episode. Because again, the murder mystery was cool, but the action was definitely lacking to me. But let me know what all of you think. If you watched the second episode, what'd you think? Did you enjoy the take on the Golden Age Clayface? What did you think of Renee Montoya pulling a gun at Batman after he had just saved her and the victim? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.